we have two youth pastors here, and they're going to go first. And then the second part of the class is my lesson, and that'll be after the break. So the first part before the break is Pastor Pete Westera, and then and then Pastor Sturge Gorm. All right. Whoa. So why don't we start the class off by you first of all having an encouraging word to the person sitting next to you. Encourage them. Go ahead. Okay, then the second thing I want you to do is open your notebook up and look at last week's notes and just scan them in your mind's eye. Look at your notes from last week. Do you have them? Yeah. Look at your notes last week. And then put your eye on one of the things that you wrote down, one of them, one of the truths that we covered, that you heard last week from Pastor Philippe and Pastor Steve. And then share it with your neighbor. That one sentence or that one truth.
Okay. It's great to be here. Those are all former teenagers clapping. I see a couple. One, two, many. Some borderline, still teenagers. Wow, there's a lot of you actually. No, Jen, you cannot call yourself a borderline teenager. I was just telling Pastor Shala how much I enjoyed this class when I took it. First time I took this class maybe 6 years ago, and I took this class, biblical counseling, twice, and biblical psychology 3 times, and it changed my life. It really did. I remember the first time I took it, it was in the little what's that called? Youth hut to me, but discipleship hall. And I remember that's the first time I heard the word significance. Have you heard that word here? I'm sure you have. And I realized that my life was about that I had spent the last 10 years of my life trying to be significant, and that it wasn't working. And it was like my flesh was exposed. I just remember those. I remember when every sentence was amazing, because I was so hungry and so ignorant. So it was just a beautiful time. Bible college, I miss it. Actually, I'm still in Bible college. I am in the other program. So I love it. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, just give us the right words today. Help me to say your words, your thoughts today, Father. And we just thank you for the privilege of being involved with people's lives, to be encouragers, encouraging people, edifying people, loving people, helping people, Father. What an incredible privilege that is. And just bless this next half hour in your name. Amen. Pastor Shala actually gave me 4 sentences. I'll just read them to you. I'm going to try to stay right on those themes in regards to counseling young people. Young people's role in the local assembly. Typical young people problems. The value of counseling young people. And young people in rebounding and correction and loving. I thought I would try to really stick on these themes and try to be real, not talk about big picture things, but actually try to be specific and talk about actual things that I deal with. And if there's teachers here, I know I saw one teacher, there's teachers here, there's other youth leaders here, and we're kind of, there she is. There's teachers here that deal with this all the time and can relate to us to this subject very much. I tried to put them in a little bit of an order. Typical young. I deal mostly with teenagers, so I'm going to say teens. Typical teen problems that you probably know. That I feel like I deal with most of the time. Number one, worldliness. You could have guessed that one. It's like a battle to me. It's difficult to fight. You know, the world has billions, literally billions of dollars set aside to influence teenagers. There's massive programs through media, through movies, through music, that the sole purpose is to influence a young person. And the best way that you can implement worldview on someone is through movies and TV and music. And that is, I think, the agenda. And I just find myself sometimes battling and fighting against this, to be honest with you. And I think it affects young people more than anything else, because it's so deceiving. When young people go through through problems, and I'll talk about that later, I think sometimes it's good that they go through trouble, that they have trouble in their life. But but this is not trouble. This is great. This is fun. This is awesomeness. And I'm worried about how often teenagers go to movies. I'm worried about how often they have headphones in their ears, and I'm worried about what they're listening to. And I find it difficult to combat that, and I believe a lot of problems come really from this. The second thing, especially, I don't know, maybe in the last couple of years, that I've dealt with or had conversations with kids about is divorce, just even within the walls of the church. And then maybe I just won't go into it, but just to say that with all my heart, I believe that this is just so detrimental to a kid. I actually came from divorce. My dad left when I was 6, but I just think that I'm not thinking of anybody specifically, so I just want to be careful. But I'm just saying, I think the thinking is that we can get away with this. We can divorce, we can separate, and my kids will be fine. My kids are doing fine. The dad sees them all the time. It's good. It's all right. That's kind of the rhetoric that I sometimes hear. But next thing you know, I got a teenager crying on my shoulders, literally, or a teenager telling me, like, I was in tears. I was brokenhearted the other day. Or we see anger issues. It just comes like a year later, 6 months later, a year later. All of a sudden, you realize this person's hurting. So, divorce is just a real big problem, I think. Unfortunately, also within Christianity. Identity. I mean, some of you guys are very young. I'm older. I wish that problem would go away 100%. It gets better with age, I think, but especially teenagers, they're so hungry for identity. They're so insecure. They need to hear positional truth so many times before they get it. They need to understand worth that is given to us from Jesus, bestowed worth. This is big for them. They need to learn how to rethink themselves, their being, and God is in the business of redefining our being. And a young person has to learn this. And some of our young kids know it. They really know it. They proclaim the right words, the right sentences. I'm always amazed and blessed by that. They say the right things. They have listened and heard it. But others, and of course everyone struggles with it to some extent, but others really struggle with this and look for identity in different ways. And boy, what a battle, what a fight. crazy conversations you can have with a child. Sometimes you find yourself just like seeing their insecurity and seeing their problems. Another thing that I've seen a lot is depression, real depression. Parents will call me, or even sometimes kids will tell me that they're locked up in their room night after night, day after day, week after week. They're depressed and isolated, and all kinds of reasons you can imagine. But this is the reality within our church. By the way, I don't really deal with hardly any teenagers outside of our own church. There are some teenagers that go to our school, and I'm available to them. But primarily, I deal with teenagers within our own church. So this is a reality for sure. Homosexuality, pornography, for sure. I think that's just a quick list of things that we do, that I've dealt with, and there's more. But just in recent memory, this is what I've gone through. Of course, relationships is a big one. Interestingly, I think we changed our philosophy on relationships as a church. Maybe we could say. I don't know if I can say that, but I feel like we did. When I was a kid, we were told, do not date. No dating allowed. Even a freshman in college couldn't date. And actually it was serious. It was like, if you dated, you were in deep trouble. So we dated secretly. And it didn't really work. Everybody had relationships. And then we kind of stopped saying that, maybe, I don't know when. I just know that collectively I think we agreed that we wouldn't control people's lives that way, and especially I really changed my tactics. I remember I had 5 boys. I don't think any of them here. I had 5 boys in my office maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and said, let's list all the things that can go right on this side of the page, and let's list all the things that can go wrong on this side of the page. I didn't tell them don't do it. I just said, okay, you're dating, great, awesome. Let's talk about what could happen. And they themselves came up with maybe 15 things that can go wrong and 2 things that can go right. And it kind of is working. I think it's working. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying stuff is not happening, but in our high school, there's very little dating. Zoe, is that right? There's very little dating. I'm convinced, in comparison to a public high school where it's the only thing happening. When I say dating, I just mean relationships of any kind And I think that we are teaching our kids that, I remember we had a boys rap with Andy Lange, and the theme was, are you sure you know what you're doing? Do you have the capacity? Do you know yourself enough to know that you match this person? Do you have the discipline? Do you have the spiritual integrity? Do you have the self-control to handle this serious relationship, exclusive, serious relationships? These are the things that we're telling our kids now, and I believe it to be working to some extent. You could say that that's an impossible battle. Can you imagine the forces at work, right? Just try to remember when you were a teenager, right? Especially if you're a boy. So the fact that we have any success is amazing, and I don't even know if we can call it success, it could go wrong tomorrow, and that's fine, but overall, I think that's a success story. So, just to quickly to go over that subject, those are the things that I come across a lot, and I think about a lot. I try to read about a lot, and counsel. This is what we're talking about. I try to counsel. And that's really the next sentence I was going to talk about, and that's the value of counseling young people. The problem with counseling young people is that you're very restricted for many reasons. Number one is that they don't want counseling. For the most part, it's not like I can walk up to somebody in our school and say, you know, you need help, you need counseling. Come sit in my couch. You know, they don't want it. They're uncomfortable, really, talking about anything deep or serious. The word awkward is the big word, right? And I learned a long time ago. I've been doing this 7.5 years, and I said, I need to ignore that word, because otherwise I will never get anywhere with kids, because everything I do, I'm an adult. Everything I do is awkward, and any kind of relationship I try to have with a kid is awkward. And I'll mention her name, but because I think she won't mind. But I remember fighting very hard to get a connection with Faith Frankenhauser and Tara and that class, and when they were 10th grade, so that's been a while. But I remember it was like torturous, absolutely torturous, because they didn't want nothing to do with me. But on the other hand, just choosing to not care about that word, and in my mind, I thought they don't know what they're saying. They might say it's awkward. It's awkward. They might tell their friends it's so awkward. Why is he always calling me? Why does he want to go to Frank's Pizza with us? Why does he always calling us to go to Bible study? It's so weird, so awkward. And I thought to myself, that's what they're saying now because they don't know any better. But maybe in 10 years they look back and say, wow, that youth leader loved me, you know, or the body loved me. And I just said, I'm going to get over that, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm just going to, you know. And I even say it. It's like maybe the first sentence I say sometimes when I'm with somebody. In fact, last Tuesday I was sitting with a young man, and I just said, hey, you know, I know this can be awkward, but if you give me 10 minutes, it'll get better, you know. And we just joke around, laugh, and next thing you know, it's like we're having a serious conversation, and it's working. And but that's really the obstacle, you know, like that they don't want to be counseled. They don't really want to hang with adults. Every once in a while you get a kid, you know, like Noah Dunbar, who loves hanging with adults and talking to adults. But for the most part, kids are like, what do you want, you know? They kind of feel like it's a chore, you know. There's other limitations in the sense that, you know, we can't really be alone with them, you know. There's new rules, really, if you want to say that. Where when I was a kid, you know, people grabbed me, and we had great connections with adults because they invested in us. It's a little harder today, so there's obstacles, you know, and we have to kind of be careful. You know, we have to be careful about being with them. We have to be careful that we don't try to become a father figure to them. That's not our role. There's more than likely or many times a father there. You know, and I'm not trying to be anyone's dad. But because I grew up in this ministry, I know that can happen. I know that I had many dads in this church. In fact, I counted 24 pastors that invested in my life. I was a lot of work. It took a lot of people to get me where I am. So for sure, that can happen. So the way I look at it is, I'm not trying to be anyone's father. I'm just trying to love kids and help them any way I can, just available, pretty much way out of my league, hoping for God to move. But if the child views me as a father figure, hey, great, I love that, fine. Whatever I can do, whatever little way, that's fine with me. Like, I'm not afraid of that, but I don't plan for it. And in today's world, there's a lot of missing fathers, so you can imagine how God's plan would be that you could fill a void in their lives in the church. So I think it's something that can be, you got to be careful about. And you know, we have these little hurdles. And you know, another little hurdle is you know, the subject matter. You got to be careful what you talk about. What I mean is, it could be that when you're talking to a kid, that all of a sudden stuff comes out, you know. And I'm not suggesting that anything gets suppressed. It's better that it comes out. But on the other hand, you got to be careful what you hear, and you all of a sudden become very accountable in many ways. And really what I'm trying to say, and I'd want it to come out, especially if it's something horrible from the past, but I'm not really talking about that so much, is that a lot of times teenagers want to be negative about their parents. It's one of the things that I find is the devil's lie. We talked about it 2 weeks ago in the Bible class, Bible study, Saturday night, that one of the devil's lies to teenagers is to make them think that their parents are idiots. I was like never an idiot till my daughter became a teenager. I say that jokingly in some ways, but you know how it is, right? Rolling of the dad. Like I went to lunch with my daughter today, and we went to Panera Bread, and apparently I wasn't fast enough with the process of ordering food and how to do it and where to, So she just took over. Dad, just give me the card. Dad, like all of a sudden I became helpless. Like I couldn't order food. Here you go, Kayland. And that feeling of you're an idiot, Dad. Let's go. Is there. But I am very careful about that. And I remember I was with one young man, and I had planned on meeting him for about maybe 6 weeks every week. And I kind of told him that. And the first week he started ripping into his dad. And I said, okay, time out. We will have one conversation about your dad if you want to. But you're going to have to try to be as positive as possible. And you're also going to have to tell me good things about him. And after this conversation, we're done. I'm not going to sit with you every single week and listen to you complain about your dad. And it wasn't abuse or anything like that. It was just, he was strict or whatever. And I'm very careful about counseling kids and letting them, rip their parents apart. And I'm careful about what I hear, and I purpose to forget things. Like, that's kind of part of the deal. Like, I am just not going to walk around church looking at some mom or some dad, and like have that on me. I just say, okay, I don't know anything about that situation. I heard a young person tell me one side, and I don't know, who knows what was really going on in their minds and what's really going on in the situation. And again, if it's something serious, of course, we communicate upwards, and any kind of abuse, I think it's important, of course. That's another side, another story. We communicate it immediately to people above us that this is or that's going on. But I'm talking about, just a teenager just saying, ripping into their parents or telling us stuff. That's a dangerous, slippery slope. If you start joining them against their parents, you're in trouble. And I am very careful about that, and I kind of stop them most of the time. And I kind of take the parents' side. I'm like, really? Like that's your perception of your dad? Like, and I try to shoot holes in that, and just say, I don't know. My Bible tells me that I have to honor my parents, and you can tell me something if you want, but at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to get very far with me, and you're not going to get very far in life. And it's cheap to me. It's just too easy, It's just too easy to complain about your parents. It's like, give me a break. That's what the whole world is doing, If you want, let's play the victim role. I am this way because my mom, my dad. Like every one of us could say some kind of sentence, and it's in some cases it's legit, but in many cases it's not legit, and in all cases it's God ordained. So, I just try to be careful there as a counselor. The other thing that I watch out for as a counselor is I don't want anyone, and this can happen very easily, but I don't ever want anyone to think that I have favorites, Some people, especially girls, respond much better to your investment than guys. And, I just don't ever want anyone to think that I have, favorites, that I'm always with this person, always with that person, that I'm cliquey. I would like to be known as a youth leader that is across the board. And in fact, I think I spend more time with the outsiders than I do with people that are very faithful all the time coming around. And I just don't want to have this image that, you have an inner circle. And that if you're good, then you're Pete's buddy, Or if you're good, then you and Pete are close. And I've actually heard it said several times now, actually, that like a teenager will come to me, what have I got to do to have you take me out to lunch? Do I got to like commit a crime or like, you know? And I'm saying probably, you know. But and I like that. I like that they know that I love them and I'm for you, but I'm not for you more than I'm for somebody else. I'm for everybody. And sometimes I have to work at it, like, you know, because some people just are drawn to you or drawn to the kind of fun we have, you know, at camp or wherever, the pizza, whatever you want to call it. We have a lot of fun in our youth ministry, and some kids are just very much drawn to it. I think maybe it's fair to say that teenagers less than adults don't get counseled as much from the pulpit. I'm not suggesting that we stop preaching to our teenagers. I'm just saying, me anyways, as an adult, I get counseled every week from the pulpit. I have been corrected 1,000,000 times from the pulpit. This is how I live, from message to message to message. I find God has a great way of digging deep, and my Bible and our pulpit is just beautiful in that sense. But teenagers, it's a little bit more difficult, I think. For a teenager to sit in a 40-minute message and be corrected by that is it does happen. Don't get me wrong, it does happen. And Matt Viaters, is he here? I don't know. His testimony would be that he can still quote messages from Pastor Love, and still does actually quote messages from Pastor Love. And so there is absolutely a place for that. But on the other hand, I think with teenagers there has to be another plan. And I think that plan really involves a connection, a personal connection with the kid. That you really can preach to a kid, and you can just be that pastor on the stage, or you can have a personal connection with a kid, and they're more than likely to listen to you. And you can spend time with that kid, and you can notice that kid and know that kid's name and say hi to him every time you walk through the chapel, and you can do your best. I mean, there's too many stinking kids, but you can do your best in every which way to be with them. Not alone, but there's, more and more we're getting better at being with kids in proper environments. Tonight after this, Pastor Sturgis here, we're going to go out and visit kids at home, in their home, with the parents there, just to get another dimension of how they operate, where they live, and to show them in another way that we love them, in a different way than we do any other way. We have our camps and our trips and our Bible studies, and we have our lunch time here, but then we have visitation time at their home, which I rate as number one of the most effective things we do. It's just a beautiful time. The kid, in many cases, feels very special. And I've got amazing stories about that. I won't go into, but I'll just say kids clean their homes for hours in anticipation that I'm coming. They bake cookies. One time I was 20 minutes late and freaking out that maybe I wasn't coming. When you go we're going to go visit when you go visit a 14 or 15-year-old kid at their home, it's like, wow, what are you doing? So this is what Greater Grace does anyway, right? Our pastors do it. So I said, why not with teenagers? And we started doing it, and I think it's the most effective thing we do. I really do, because it's just so personal. And, when you're in front of a group, you have one message in one way. When you go on a trip, there's another way. Coach Lynch has another way of connecting to kids. The teacher has another way of connecting to kids. Nate McFarland has an amazing ministry with kids. Matt Viator has a ministry with a group. But this is just another way. It takes a long time. It takes a long time. Like when a new youth leader joins our team, I just tell them, okay, give it about a year. It just takes time. They're just not going to let you in their circle. They're just not going to say, hey, you're a youth leader. Oh, okay. It just takes a long time. You're going to have to just kind of work at it and, go to these trips and break through the ice, break through the Berlin Wall between you and them, and crack it and show them that you love them and show them that you don't care, and show them that your life is about them, and little by little you build connections. I took I took a teenager. I always take teenagers home after the Bible study, and I took a teenager for a year and a half, actually 2 teenagers on 2 different occasions, home for over a year without them ever saying a word to me. I mean, just not one word, not one word. And finally, after about a year, they just exploded in my car, and I couldn't get them to shut up. And, really, that really happened to me 2 times. And I remember thinking, okay, so if it takes a year, it takes a year, So it's a long time building a relationship. Sometimes from Bible college, people will want to do their what is it called? Curriculum, practicum. Hey, can I do my 3-month practicum? And I just say, no, thanks. Go do it somewhere else. Do you want to be a youth leader? Yes. Okay, great. Join us. You just want to get a grade for 3 months? I don't need you. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It takes time. I always try to stay professional, meaning I am fun. We're fun, but we're not silly. There's a respect for the position, if you will. Maybe we could say it that way. I'm a youth leader. I used to be crazier. I used to do things at camp I can't do anymore. I'm sure Bree's very thankful about that because he used to harass her. But, there's got to be a professionalism about it. You can't get silly and goofy. We can, but we can't. I don't know how to explain it, but Pastor Love is a great example. He was, when we were young, he was crazy, just crazy, but we respected him and we loved him, and we had a lot of fun, but it was serious also. I have, about counseling, 4 things that I communicate up, meaning if I hear something, I don't go talking about it with anybody else, I just go straight to Pastor Lange. Drugs, alcohol, sex, and abuse. If I hear any of those 3 things in any kind of form, even if it's a rumor sometimes, I'm not interested in gossip. I'm not gossiping, I'm communicating up. Not down, not sideways, not to parents, not any other way, not to kids, not to Facebook, just straight up. First thing I do is send an email because it's so dangerous, so dangerous. Those 4 things are so dangerous and beyond my ability to handle. I want covering. I want people to know. I want people to deal with it, and I love that we're strict about some of these things. Counseling, I think often, I don't know how much has been covered, but counseling, I think, also involves outside help sometimes, and sometimes medication. I didn't go to college for this, but I wouldn't call myself a professional psychiatrist or counselor of any kind. But here we are, and we find ourselves in these positions, and many times it's beyond us. The next subject is young people in the local assembly, which is my favorite subject. And it is my favorite subject because I was a body baby. I grew up in the church, and my mom had the spiritual wherewithal to say, Dad's out of the picture. I can't handle you. You're going to be smack dab in the middle of the church. You will grow up in the middle of the church. Your only life that you'll know is the church. All your social needs will be met in the church. There's no movies. There was no other life. There was no other life. I was sheltered. Yes, I was sheltered. And I really believe in it. You know what's interesting about Hannah? I don't think I've shared that in this kind of setting, but we all know the story of Hannah. How she said, Samuel is going to be yours, Lord. I will lend him to the temple. What I find amazing about that is that the temple was messed up at the time. Remember that? It was not just a little bit messed up. It was at the worst state it had been in a long time. There was deception. There was the sons were stealing money and selling the food, right, the meat. The ark was missing. Soon enough, the ark disappeared. It was taken. The description of Eli even tells us a lot, maybe, of what he was like. And God only knows what else was going on in this place, right? It was totally crazy to put your child in the temple. And a reasonable person would have said, no way, no way. There's no way that that's God's will. But it was God's will. And Hannah gladly did it. And her prayer, if you read her prayer in 1 Samuel chapter 2, in that context, you read that prayer thinking that she has her child in the temple. And the words of that prayer are amazing. They're amazing if you think about it in that context. Her faith, her trust in God, the enemies, I'm trying to remember it, but I read that prayer one time with that in mind and thought, wow, this is amazing. This woman is amazing. And she was so spiritual, and she was so godly, and she knew what to do with her kid. And, the church is not perfect. And this is really what I'm getting at. Like, I believe one of the attacks, the new attacks, maybe we can say. I don't know if it's new. I haven't been around long enough to say that it's new. But I feel as though one of the new attacks is that parents in the body are being directly attacked in terms of protecting their child from the body. I really believe this. I get hints of it. I see it. I get comments from parents, from others, and I believe that this is one of Satan's strategy. And even the recent events that have occurred here in our church from 15 or more years ago, Satan has a plan with that, and the plan is to hurt the victims. The plan is to hurt our church. But maybe the bigger plan is for parents to say, I'm not putting my child in that temple because there's problems in that temple. And I can hear it. I can hear it. I can hear it from parents. I can hear it in statements, little statements. And I think that is devastating. That is devastating. Because there will be a day where you as a parent will not have enough, that you will not be enough to your child because you're not Jesus, but the body is. The body is the fullness of Christ. And you as one of those 24 pastors that invested in my life, some of them are idiots. How can I just use that word? I would never mention the names, but it's like, what? But God used them. Why? Because they were in the body. In the body, they were like perfect. And they were amazing to me. So, you can handle your kid when he's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, but when he gets to be 8 or 9 or 10, you're going to be you're going to be like, oh, Lord, help me. Every parent here is shaking their heads, like, And the body is the fullness of Christ, and your kid belongs in the body. And don't worry about this or that or this person or that person. And I'm such a believer in that, and I'm so convinced that this is the attack on parents. That's when we think of child-centered homes, we think of those parents who are like soccer moms, and we think of parents who are overprotective or whatever. We think of a worldly parents who have no life except through their children. But I think it's much deeper than that in the body of Christ, that moms are saying, I don't know if I'm going to let this person invest in my child. I'm not sure if I'm going to let my kid go here or go there or go even on a summer harvest trip or even camp. And I'm not sure if I'm going to always push my kids towards the body. And it's a heartbreaking thing for me to see a parent almost assist their kid from not being around. And there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I can call the kid 100 times. I can visit him 100 times. But if the parent is not behind us, if the parent's not saying this place is awesome, if the parent is critical, I don't have a chance. I don't have a chance to connect or help this kid, and neither does anybody else in this church for that matter. So I just maybe I could say it this way: the best counselor is the body. At least from my perspective. I'm not saying it's the only counselor, but I grew up in this church, so I can say that the body helped me more than anybody else did. I don't remember many messages when I was 10 or 12 or 14, But I do remember people loving me. I remember Pastor George Durkee taking me out for ice cream in Pittsfield because I was always getting in trouble with security. And instead of punishing me, he took me out for ice cream. And it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? Be a jerk and still, one of the things we did in Lenox, because there was so much snow and no TV, is that we would get chased by security. That would be like dress in black, throw a snowball at a car, and then run and see if they would chase us. And then we would bumper ski or something. So we were bored. Very happy to do that, though. And I just remember not being able to do it to him. I couldn't do it to him. So anyways, I'm going long, but the last subject is just rebounding, correction, loving. By the way, I could talk about the body life thing forever. I could talk about it forever. But this last thing, rebounding, I don't know how I can put this, but some of the greatest moments I've had with teenagers is when they failed. It really is like that. I've also pulled my hair out. I've also had like the worst, most insecure, I've never felt more like a failure when a teenager fails on my watch. Like you just feel like, oh my God, I just quit. I quit. What I'm working my. It's just like it's not working. Nothing's working. Well, what am I doing wrong? Like I remember laying awake a whole night one time. I was like, I am just an idiot. I'm pathetic. But then God redeeming it and realizing that this was part of God's plan. The good kids, the perfect good kids. You could worry about those. I definitely wasn't a good kid, so I don't know how good kids go to heaven, but no. But you know what I mean? Like, how great is it to give grace to somebody? What a great opportunity to love them despite, One of my favorite things to say, and I've had several times, maybe 4 or 5 times, to say to an individual, we're never going to talk about it again. It's over. Like, I love you. It's great. It's beautiful. You're amazing to me. It's forgotten. To me, it's forgotten. So, those are, and treating them as if it's forgotten, and loving them in the same way, and laughing and having fun with them. And that's just maybe all I'll say about that. I only have a couple minutes, Pastor Stewart. Do you have anything you want to add, please?
Just 5 minutes? Is that all right, Pastor Shaw? 5 minutes? No. I'm a short speaker. That's one thing about youth ministry. You don't speak long, right? I learned. Yeah, I don't speak long to kids. I speak like 15 minutes. Pastor used to say, "Leave them hungry for more when you get done." It's good. In fact, we had it was really neat at chapel. Yesterday, we just taught on the grace of God, the high school chapel, and then we showed a little YouTube thing. It's called Broken Plates. I don't know if you've seen it. It's really good. Falling Plates, yes, that's it. But it's amazing with just everything that Pete said is so true that we said this last night, that our kids want to know that what we have is more than just theology. They really want to know that. They really want to know that grace is more than just a word to us. And that when they hear the word unconditional love, what does that mean? And therefore, they will test us. They'll test us. Because they want to know if it's real. And your children will. And sometimes, even after they're grown up, they will. I remember a young man that was in the youth ministry for a long time, and he was trouble. Like, he was always getting in trouble, and people just wrote him off. People would just say, "Oh, he's never going to make it." And one thing over the years in youth ministry is learning unconditional love with kids. Like, no matter what they're like, no matter how they react, I love you. I remember just being on the phone for all day Wednesday, all day Friday during the summer, and I would just call one kid after another. One kid after another, just call them. And a lot of these kids, I didn't even know them, but I just called them. And I didn't spend a long time on the phone with them, just a short time, because I think young people need little deposits. I don't think you need to, the kids don't need a big speech. They don't need a big speech from you. I'm guilty of that with my son. I remember sitting him down for the big speech, and like about 5 minutes through the big speech, you could tell he was in another world. It was like, just shut it off, and he's gone. He's somewhere else. So we've learned, like, you don't need to say a lot. You really don't. And something that Pastor Shower said is stories. Take those little opportunities in the car and when you're with a young person, just to tell a story and just to make that deposit in their soul. Just a quick deposit, an edifying word. You don't have to be all over, you don't have to be like overly, just like Pete said, you just love them, and they discern. Teenagers, they know if you love them. They know if you really love them, or if it's your ministry. This is my ministry, therefore I have to love you. They can pick that up a mile away. But over the years, we've learned just, hey, unconditional love. Unconditional love. Like, you are the worst kid in the school, but you know what? I still love you. And finding out 10 years later, the kid said, you know what? And I didn't even know I had an effect on this kid's life. I had no idea. I didn't think I made a dent in his life. And he said, Pastor Sturge made such an incredible investment in me. And the way he treated me, the way he loved me made all the difference. And I had no idea. And that's the other thing. You don't see it. With youth ministry, you don't always see the results. If you're in youth ministry to look for results, forget it. You're in the wrong place. Because you might not see those results for another 20 years down the road. And that's just the way it is with young people. He that regardeth the wind shall not sow, right? He that regardeth the clouds shall not reap. So we don't walk by sight when it comes to investing and counseling young people. But we just show them that what we have is real and that we love them for who they are, not because of their performance, not because they get better. And there's so much we could say, but I just I love working with Pastor Pete. It's such a joy. And I think that I look at Tony and Tom and Kai and these guys, and I just think, you know what, you guys are the result, like Pete said, of the body, of just the investment and just hanging out, just being here. And that's what it takes. It doesn't take a village. It takes the body, doesn't it? Amen.
Maybe you have a question to ask either of these men. I had a couple that came to my mind, a couple questions. But do you have, we just take a few minutes. Do you have a question? Yes, Oliver.
About, since divorce is so prevalent, could you speak maybe and give me 1 or 2 points on how you would initially counsel a teen whose parents have probably just recently divorced or have been dealing with that over a period of time? I ask you that because of my thing that we do over in West Baltimore is we deal with so many kids whose fathers are gone.
I think a lot of that is if you have a kid talking about it with you, that's amazing. I think that's the biggest hurdle. Kids probably are more likely not to mention that or talk about that or shame, especially maybe within the church. I always one of the lines I always use is look, I'm your youth leader, and we have a lot of fun together. We play sports together. We go on trips all over the place together. I love you. You're great, but I don't want to have a fake relationship with you. Like, I don't want you to be crying inside and be worried about something inside or have pain in your soul, you know, and not talk about it. Like there's an elephant in the room, and you don't have to talk about it with me, but maybe if you do, if you decide to or want to, it might help you. So that's, I think, my first hurdle, just like get it out of them. I'm not like driven about it, just very like Pastor Sturge said, it can be, there's like zero expectation, zero. That's just like, if you get a smile, it's an incredible victory in many cases. But, I have expectation from God, but just not from anything we do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, don't get in the middle of it, stay out of the middle of it. That could backfire on you. And then third, help them go to God with it. Like, one of the things I remember about my mom is that she treated me like such an adult when I was so young. She literally talked to me like I was a 40-year-old spirit-filled Christian, and I was far from it. I'm, far from it. But she treated me that way. She discussed things that way with me. She acted. She talked about warfare. She talked about Satan. She talked about the cross in our lives. I remember the conversations very young. Not maybe those words, but just here's how we're going to deal with this, And that's a great subject. Like, are your kids capable of hearing a message about? Can the kids receive a personal cross message? And I'm not saying pound the pulpit saying you need to have a cross in your life. I'm saying, in your reaction to things in your life, can you show them? Can you show them how God reigns? I don't know if I can say more than that. I don't know.
Okay, one more question. I have one. How would you break the trust of a teenager? Like, he's learning to trust you. He's not talking to you because he doesn't totally trust you. After 1 year, he's gaining the trust. And then how is it broken? What would you do to break that trust?
There's probably the obvious things, like any kind of abuse. But I think what's coming to my mind anyway is talking about them. If they get wind that you had conversations with others about them, by the way, it doesn't take much. Forget their name, and you're 5 steps backwards with a teenager. An adult can absorb the fact that you don't know their name, but if you forget their name, you're in trouble. That's one. These are little things maybe, but I find it interesting that I'm horrible with names, but not with teenagers. I really believe God helps me. Just like you have incredible capacity for names all over this world, you blow my mind. Foreign, crazy names. I can do it with teenagers, and I think that's from God. I really believe that. But anyways, I could probably say a lot, but I think Pastor Serge said something too. Like, the best way to be with them is open, transparent, and be real. Like, if I'm fake, if I'm pretending, if I'm putting up a show, like, we have a lot of joy. Like, it's from God. You know what I mean? Like, I would have burned out years ago, but I really believe it to be from God. I mean, we have our moments, and we have our times where it's just like, really, I got to do this again. But then most of it is just incredible fun, incredible privilege, lots of joy in our hearts, And I just think it's just an open, transparent, and real thing in front of them. And if it's not real, and if you're putting on a show, and if you're not saying real things to them and faking it, to me that could be a real detriment. Because teenagers are amazing. Teenagers sat in our church years ago and said, "That guy ain't for real." Us adults were like, "No, we love him." But teenagers would have, that guy's a joke. They saw through things. They really did. So I don't know. Pastor, do you have any other?
That's good. I just think the repeating the matter. I think that's the greatest way to break a trust. Repeating the matter.
Okay, so take your break, and we'll come back. We'll do a review and teach a lesson. We'll get that done.